Hello, my name is Rebecca Rowland, and this is my case presentation. For my presentation, I will be referring my client to the student or the client. So I hope you will learn a lot as I tell you more about my student. Alrighty, so a little bit more about the student I've been working with. Just some information regarding her demographics. So she is female, Caucasian, cisgendered. She is in fourth grade, um, 10 years old. She has divorced parents. She mainly lives with her mom and her younger brother. And then it kind of goes down into the siblings. So she has a younger brother, and then she has, um, I believe, another younger brother on the way from her dad's side. Her stepmom's pregnant, and then on top of that, just some step brothers and sisters as well. And then just some highlights of just working with her and hearing from her teacher. She does well academically, she's very insightful, and she is good at communicating. So leading into the identified problem. So when first meeting with her, she uh, didn't come off saying I have problems with emotional regulation, but she kind of told me that she has noticed sometimes she does get upset quite easily at school when something challenging comes about, or if someone says something that she doesn't agree with or kind of triggers her. And as well as having some peer conflict. With one particular boy where they just have very strong opinions, and she wasn't sure what could help in that situation. She was just, kind of, upset that it continues on, as well as some other peer conflict with some girls in her class, not including her in things, and then there was also recently a bus incident where a student was trying to stop her from going past him, and he's a lot older than her, but still having that peer conflict and trying to figure out how to help herself in those situations. She also has stated she has homework stress. She mainly has challenges in math, but when we talk, she tells me she gets help and that she feels better. Just not just with homework stress, but when state tests come about too, she has some anxiety there. And then just some family conflict. So I put this is very minimal because in the school atmosphere, we kind of try to focus mainly on the problems at school. Not like any student can't come in and tell us there's something conflicting them at home that, is bothering them here at school, but we just try to focus on helping them in the school atmosphere. So there are some things, and I think a lot of what she thinks with the family conflict is because, this with this divorce, and just, wanting to, find acceptance, and that kind of leads into some other things later on in my presentation. Alrighty, so moving on from what the student identified as what the problem is, we also have to look at what her teacher said, because in the school atmosphere, we don't always have students come to us stating their problems and confessing that they need help. So through DMIC, especially at my internship, they have a policy where teachers will have the option to send a referral to the counselor if they're noticing anything in their classrooms that could affect the student's learning or their emotional state or whatever it may look like. So basically how this all started with me meeting with this student was that her teacher had sent us this referral form. And so I wanted to share it with you because I wanted to show you what it looked like, what the referral form looked like, and I have crossed off her name. And so I can't see from here, so I'm going to read this to you. So it starts off like, stating the student's name, the teacher and what grade, who it was referred by, the date, and then we always try to have the teachers contact the parents first and kind of tell them, like, this is what I'm seeing, this is what I'm going to do. I really think that, this student would thrive in seeking maybe counseling services or just maybe having an intervention get placed for them or whatever it may look like. And just kind of giving them a heads up of, hey, I'm going to send this referral. Are you okay with it? Do you notice anything at home? That type of thing. So anyway, so then the first question is, what are the presenting problems and reasons for the student's referral? So this says the student has a hard time controlling her emotions. We're working on learning when to walk away. She likes to be in charge and a leader, which sometimes leads to hurt feelings and disagreements. And then leading on to the next question, it says what classroom interventions have been attempted or are currently in place. And I think this is a huge thing that we are striving for, which I'll kind of explain this in another slide, is that we try to do other things, other interventions, and try them and put them into place before we jump into counseling to see what we're already trying, what's working, what's not working, and trying to figure it out. So the teacher says when her emotions get big, as in crying a lot, we go in the hallway and take a break. I have her walk through the situation with me and we talk about it. I have separated her from certain classmates. So already had some intervention plans set, which is awesome. And then we want to not just look at like the negative or the downfalls or the challenges and concerns, but we want to also see what the student's strengths are and see how her strengths can kind of help her too in this problem and how she can turn herself around or try to. So strengths is that she is so smart. She's very good at reading and writing. She loves her baby brother, who is 8 months old. She likes imaginative play and being a leader. She likes outdoor activities as well, as her dad is a hunter. So I liked reading that because now I'm kind of seeing what her teacher has been seeing as well. I think she thrives, she listens, she retains things. And so then just leading down at the bottom, it kind of just asks other things that we want to know, like if the student has an IEP or 504, RTI intervention, attendance concerns, DCFS referrals, office and discipline referrals, food, housing, instability. So that was her teacher's referral. So relevant data, I was kind of conflicted on this because, like, as I stated before, I don't know, I feel like I compare a lot, and so I'm like, wow, there's not much to put in this section. And I just think it's because, the student I'm working with, she has like no significant like mental or health problems or anything, and doesn't have a lot of school challenges as I stated, and that she was referred as another thing, but we will try to kind of explain this. I apologize if you can hear the barking. I will try to continue on. So, firstly, relevant school policies. So, they, as a school, they have social emotional programming policies. Um, and at the beginning of this year, my supervisor kind of presented this policy and this plan that they have in place for, what this year was going to become, and, when there's different things that come up, how will we work with them, and what does that look like, if that makes sense. And so there is a thing, I don't know if it's just in this school or just in the state, but there's this thing called the multi-tier system, which I will get to in a second. And basically, it's like a step-by-step basis of intervention and like the way that we are going to practice and work on solving issues within our students. And so basically, I kind of want to go to the next slide now and kind of explain what I'm talking about. And the cool thing is that I am going back to my I don't know what you'd call it, the handout that we had to do at the beginning of the year, because I wanted to kind of review that, but also I want to introduce it to Nick and any other people who might have forgotten what that looks like. So I'm going to jump to the next slide, and then I'll come back to the slide to kind of explain some more things. Alrighty, so this is what the behavior intervention tiers looks like. Basically you work your way, basically you start with 1 and then you work your way to tier 3. And so with this particular student, we kind of, well, I wouldn't say we skipped tiers because the teacher did try some in-class interventions, but we did start as the counselor and social work role. We did jump to tier 3 for individual counseling. But you can kind of just see like how it's supposed to start for tier 1, just, directive interventions, guiding expectations, classroom-wide goals and incentives, correcting feedback, visual, like I'm skipping around, some visual cue aids, taking breaks. And so with her, like, the teacher was taking her out of the classroom, kind of giving her a break and a breather and kind of explaining her emotions and what she was feeling. And then, we look at 2, and then there's like, we have like a check-in and check-out system and social academic instructional groups and mentoring, but just, with the student, we didn't really have, it wasn't about behavior. It wasn't, anything that was discerning. It was just more of her emotional regulation and some other things. And so that's why we went to 3 and started to do individual counseling. So that's just kind of a quick example of what that is. Alrighty, so then moving forward, human rights issue, I honestly didn't see anything regarding anything that was concerning with that. For justice issues, I put down home environment, classroom and recess environment. So with her home environment being in a divorced family, and I think, that has a lot of challenges, and not being, super well connected with her dad as much as she would like to. She does, like, as I say before, she likes to, do hunting with him and stuff, but a lot of the time she doesn't feel like she fits in with the dad side of the family, and she's trying to explore that, and a new baby on the way, and the step siblings, and she kind of feels, a little bit excluded on that end. And a lot of the time, dad will, if he does plan to do something with her, It's something that she doesn't want, but something that he wants more, and we'll try to do more of the things that he enjoys and not what she likes, and that's one thing, but again, we don't try to, focalize on this, one point, because, we're not, in another outside counseling center or in the school, and so we're trying to focus on the school issues and challenges. So the classroom recess environment, so with these peer conflicts, and I don't want to say they get physical, because they don't, but like for one incident, like she was trying to explain something, and then this one boy kind of like put her arm down and was saying like, don't say that, that's very offensive to me, and like just they were both kind of arguing just about like different opinions that they both have, and that, and just some things with other peers, she's trying to be accepted and trying to be liked, and so I would say some of that might be a little bit concerning in some of the justice issues. Alright, so I'm sorry now my head is tiny, but I wanted you to see everything. So now I'm going to talk about my hypothesis and recommendation. So just from the things I've heard, for example, with her crying episodes, I kind of thought that, maybe we should work on some emotional regulation with some of her negative thoughts and thinking. So, like, when she gets in these disagreements with her peers, I think, if, they kind of bicker back and forth, she might, like, downplay herself and kind of like think negatively of like, oh, maybe he is or she is right, maybe I shouldn't have said that, maybe I should be more like this person, and do this and do that. And so for her, like with the negative thinking, I think I was thinking that we could have like work on the cognitive thinking distortions that she has. And then with her peer and home conflicts, mainly focusing on the peer conflicts. But we do talk about home situations too. Now, like, again, we don't disregard those. We will kind of work on those together. But with that, I was thinking like, some conflict resolution there. So with my recommendations for intervention, I was thinking of using a short-term intervention plan, which inquired meeting once a week for individual counseling and for peer mediation, to identify and cope with challenging situations, and to identify emotions and her negative self-talk and cope with negative thinking patterns. So I feel like there are a lot of practice theories and models that we work with. These are just some of them. So the main focal point, and mostly for me, what I've been working on with this student is cognitive behavioral therapies. So we work on identifying negative thinking patterns and distortions, and identify emotions related to those patterns and distortions. And we also have worked on cognitive strategies for thought stopping and thought changing, and have practiced behavioral strategies for self-regulation, and work on some communication skills. And then that kind of leads into like the solution focus. So we have kind of like the communication kind of leads into the solution focus a little bit too. So worked on solutions to help some peer conflict. So actually I am very happy to say that when I offered to have a peer mediation session, after explaining to her what it is and stuff, she agreed to it. She's actually one of the first students this year who agreed to having a peer mediation session, and the student who was part of this conflict also agreed. So it was really neat getting to work with two of them and kind of collaborate and problem solve and figure out how we can resolve this issue. Also, currently have been working on solutions to help her emotional regulation. Also have brainstormed solutions together for peer conflict on the bus. So that was another thing that recently happened. And I haven't dug into it so much, but have worked on ways to communicate with her dad better. So this was basically just like a one session type of thing. It hasn't come up since, but you know, like I mentioned, she was trying to figure out like how to tell her dad that she didn't want to do something and that she wanted to do more of her thing. And so that was another thing, figuring out a solution to, you know, talk to dad. The client-centered theory. So, you know, basically every session I start off meeting with the student, letting her talk about anything that's been bothering her recently in the last week, or if it was something recently that we've talked about before we get into the practices. Now, I always have a plan of something we can work on, like whether it's a worksheet or like we use this program called Everyday Speech that has some videos and whatnot. And so after we do, after, well, I don't want to say after we talk, because if we run out of things to talk about, then we'll lead into those, you know, worksheets and videos and other activities. But if she has more things to say, then we kind of, you know, just focus mainly on that in that session. And then emotion-focused therapy, so identifying feelings, rating feelings based on real or hypothetical situations, provided reflection and correction of various emotions, also by processing and acknowledging big emotions, as stated from her teacher in the referral. And I'll kind of show some of these examples of these practices later on. Alright, so goals and evaluation strategies. So my goals when working with her were to identify and practice calming strategies because she's having these big feelings and emotions, you know, having outbursts in class and in the lunchroom and at recess when something has happened or someone triggers her with some words or unkind actions. We practice SWOT, so that's a huge thing we do as a whole school-wide based intervention, which stands for stop, walk, and then away, and then tell a teacher. So she knows that, you know, if she tells a classmate, you know, I don't like how you're doing this, why you're doing this, and like trying to tell them like, you know, please stop, whatever. If it's not working, then we focus on telling her to like walk away, kind of leave the situation. And if it escalates, you know, tell a teacher. And she has referred to me many times that she tells an adult if something is not right, or if she just needs that, you know, the extra support because, you know, a peer is not really listening and making her feel, you know, unsafe or, you know, other things. And then also another goal is to identify and rate emotions. And so basically with all three of these kind of go into like the strategies. So for evaluation, you know, I'm asking, is she responding to the questions in a calm manner? I have, you know, talked to the teacher. Has she noticed her practicing any of these skills in the classroom or when talking to her? Having the student like self-report what's going on, if she's recognizing any changes in herself, and then charting and keeping notes to monitor her progress. Intervention strategies. So with intervention strategies, I'm working on to teach and practice cognitive and behavioral strategies for self-regulation and using differential teaching techniques. So basically, the main focus that I have been working on with her is emotional regulation, but it has led to the other things too, which, you know, is okay. There's always things to talk about and grow from. So with these intervention strategies, we have been working on positive self-talk. This is kind of like what I've been starting to work on with her a little bit today. Emotional reaction rating scales, which is, again, I'll show you this. It's like where you kind of rate how you're feeling. Are you, or how rate the problem. Is your problem, only a 2, but you're making it a 5, and kind of explaining that a little bit. Peer mediation, I already talked about that. Coping and calming skills, and this is through breathing techniques, processing techniques, distracting techniques, and physical skills. So I will show you some examples of these. So I don't want to take a lot of time on these slides because, you know, I am kind of cutting close on the time, but you know, these are some of the worksheets that I work through with her. So like today, talking about facts and beliefs, like, you know, is what you're saying to yourself inside your brain, is it a fact or a belief? And how can we change that negative belief into an actual fact? So if we're thinking of, I'm dumb, I'm not smart, I can't do it, let's change that let's change that belief into a fact and say, I can do this, because we all have the ability and strength to achieve something. We are smart. We are smart in our own ways, and if we are challenged, you know, then we can, you know, ask the teacher for help, you know. And then this other one, I had the scale, like I just mentioned, and I had her first with the different examples. I can't really read all of them from here, but for one that I see is, my dog is sick. How would you feel, and how would you rate that problem? Or what would you, so if you say it's a 2, then explain why you would rate it a 2, or if it's higher than that, why. So we kind of talk about that as well. These are some other things I worked on with her. So, you know, this is kind of like a all these are like calming, pretty much calming things. So, interventions and, you know, different things that she can work on. So like, you know, how can we stay calm? And this is kind of like, the first one is the activities list of things that she can do at home, because a lot of these you can't do, you know, at school, but kind of letting her explore some of her favorites of how to help herself calm down. You know, rating your stress. So how did you feel, you know, before or when something happens, and then after you do a calming strategy, how do you feel after that? Do you feel a lot better? Are you now down to a 1? And then this is just a picture of box breathing. I introduced this to her, and every time I talk to her, she practices this, you know, whether she does it on her paper, or she does it when she's playing softball and she draws a little box, or she said a star today on her leg. And so I think that's really neat how she's practicing these different tools that we've gone over. Alright, so evaluation and data analysis. So we are collecting our data through self-reporting, through talking to her teacher, which I talked to her teacher today, like I mentioned. She is doing great. She is retaining all the things that we talked about, and her teacher has noticed that when she talks to her, if something is like upsetting her, she will take a deep breath, and then when her teacher says, do you want to like talk about it some more, the student will say, I'm okay, and then, you know, she'll walk away, and then she's fine. So I think that's really encouraging. We observe her. We don't do this a lot in the classrooms, but I do it a lot, you know, in the session, and kind of watch how she responds to the questions. We don't really focus on the last 2, but in case something was to escalate in her behavior or anything else, we would check her JoJo behavior data and any office data too. And lastly, the interpretation of evaluation and data analysis. So I think my interpretation of the evaluation was effective. I've gotten to see growth in the student I've been working with, and even her teacher agreed that she has noticed big changes since we first started meeting with her. So next time I would want to communicate more with her mom. Actually, my supervisor was the only one to communicate with her, and it was one time just that we were going to start meeting with her. So I would definitely communicate more with her, whether it's through email or a phone call, and just kind of explain the progress that we've been making, and or just checking in to see if she's taking what she's learning and applying it at home as well. And then just collaborate with her teacher on different tools and interventions to work on in the classroom, which I think her teacher already had a set good like plans to help her before we started to meet with her, but just I would collaborate and kind of give her the materials that I've been working on with her so she can watch to see if she's been practicing those. I would also next time recommend or provide, that's supposed to say provide, sorry, provide for referrals outside counseling for home challenges, because I think there's a lot there too that's it's kind of digging her, this hole, and she's kind of bringing it into school. So I would recommend seeing an outside therapist. I don't know how her mom would react to that, but I think that could be a good plan. Um, and then I believe that my hypotheses were correct. I have seen a lot of improvements through the things that we've been working on through her emotional regulation, conflict resolution skills, cognitive distortions of thinking, which I think I still need to work on that with her a little bit more. And hopefully like soon before the school year ends. And I just think there's always room for improvement, and so I think she has, achieved a lot of things, but I think there's always, a place for her to grow to. Alrighty, so that is the end of my presentation. So since this wasn't live in class, if you have, any questions, feel free to email me, or, since we all use WhatsApp, you can always, message me too. So anyways, thanks for watching and learning about my student I've been working with.